If people could please be seated. Hey, sit down. Good morning. It's time.
If you count down from 5, the students are supposed to know that.
Oh, that's right.
The Girl Guide thing.
It's got rocks in it. Okay. Yes, we are the Universalist Unitarian community of Halifax, both in our sanctuary here and online on Zoom. My name is Margaret Galbraith, and my pronouns are she and her, and I am a member of this congregation. The Climate Crisis Team is our group who are putting on the service this morning. We're very pleased to have Dr. Anya Waite with us from the Ocean Frontier Institute at Dalhousie, who will be our speaker. Here at UUCH, we are a progressive spiritual community. We recognize that the truths of the universe are too complex to be summed up in any one religious tradition's beliefs. Instead of prescribed beliefs, here we focus on relationships, community, and responsible action in this life. Our minister is the Reverend Ben Robbins, and he can be contacted at minister.uuch.ca. We especially welcome anyone who's new or newish. If you care to introduce yourselves, I can bring you a microphone. I think we know everybody. And we also have coffee and tea afterwards if you care to stay for conversation. And today there will be our semi-annual general meeting after the service, after coffee, after the service. Tristan Kellaway is our accompanist. Riley Friesen manages the technology, and Andrea Dewar is our part-time office administrator. She's available at admin@uuch.ca. For activities for the coming week, see the announcements in your order of service. There's more details in the emails that accompany the order of service. I just want to highlight that today, as I said, at noon, we do have the semi-annual general meeting. And in a week, we have our Canvas kickoff when there will be a soup and bread lunch. And if you can contribute to that, please talk to Faith later, who is here this morning. We will now have our land and climate acknowledgement from Terry Choice.
Thank you, Margaret. We are located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory remind us that we are all treaty people, and so we commit ourselves collaboratively towards moving towards truth, reconciliation, and equity for Indigenous people. We also advocate for Black and other communities of color who continue to experience systematic oppression in our communities. The Mi'kmaq people have always depended heavily on the ocean for their fish. All over the world, people now depend on seafood to provide them with needed protein. The number of overfished stocks globally has tripled in half a century, and today, fully 1/3 of the world's assessed fisheries are currently pushed beyond their biological limits, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Marine life is also being destroyed by changes in the ocean caused by greenhouse gases. There are rising water temperatures, water acidification, changes in salinity and oxygen levels, sea level rise, and changes in ocean currents. Unless human-caused emissions are drastically reduced, life in the sea and on land will be seriously altered.
we light this chalice for the planet of which we are all part. May we pledge to hold it in our hearts and find ways to be in balance with all life.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 134, Our World is One World. The music is in the gray hymnal, and the words will be on the screens. Please stand if you're able. Now is the time in our service to reflect on our joys, our sorrows, our complex truths that you, the members and friends of this congregation, are living, and to acknowledge the mutual support of this community. This is our communal well that holds all of our stories. The water can remind us of our connection to all of life and to the earth itself. If you have a joy, sorrow, or complex truth in your heart to speak into community, we invite you to share and place a stone into the well. You might also place a stone in silence. If you're willing, please come up near the well so that those on Zoom can see you. The camera's just up there. Is there any?
First, a confession. I almost never, well, I really never do anything online with the CUC. But you've all heard of Canada Reads. Last night, we had Canadian UU's read on Zoom, and I participated. I was really surprised to be the only person from this congregation, aside from Reverend Norm, who was a moderator. And it was really, really enjoyable. 7 ministers from across the country presented 7 books that they were suggesting we use for the thing that happens. It's not soul matters, sharing our faith. So in the next month, you will see the list of those 7 books. And we were supposed to vote on the one we wanted to highlight, but ended up only voting on a theme for sharing our faith. There were 2 really great jokes that I wanted to share from you that came out. One was, practice salvation by bibliography, which you can carry on doing if you read these books. And the other was, we use books for insulating our homes.
Are there any other thoughts this morning? Is there anybody on Zoom? Sylvia?
So I have a joy. Last Sunday, we celebrated Dane's 40th birthday, and we rented the space here. So Dane wanted to have a musical jam for his birthday. So I'd say about 50 people showed up, maybe 20 of which were musicians. And it was a nice day, so we got to use the deck. And there's lots of fiddles, banjos, guitars, and I don't know, it might have been the first time that people tap danced on the deck, but not the last time, yeah. So anyway, lots of compliments on the space. People are like, whoa, what is this place? And some are poking their heads in here. So maybe there'll be other rentals or new people coming to church, but thanks so much for renting us the space for the birthday.
Following on the theme of joy, normally I'm online. And my joy is that this community of people who will come every week online from the US and from various parts of Canada and our congregation are a remarkable, interesting group of people. And it's a very joyous conversation we have after the service every week. And I want to put a rock in for that.
Okay, so we'll go with Gina online.
Hi, my brother in March had his informal swearing in ceremony for his Court of Appeal judgeship. And this week he has his formal swearing in, and so my mom and I are going to be on Zoom watching it as we watch the informal one. So I'm really happy about his promotion.
Definitely. Big rock. Big rock. Yes.
And I have a joy. I'm really excited about welcoming maybe our last batch of Syrian refugees are coming this week from Turkey. They've been waiting a long time to come. And I'm especially happy because yesterday we took possession of a wonderful little apartment, completely renovated. It's so beautiful, all new appliances, and I was impressed. It's at the Quinpool Center. So I think apartments are coming down in price, or they're getting more affordable, or something's going on, because it wasn't that difficult to find a place for them. Anyway, that's my joy. I'm with a group called Cedar Street Tigers. We're named Tigers because basically these people are all members of the same family that we've been bringing for the last little while. And their name is Al Numeri, which means tiger in Arabic. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Gabrielle. I live off by Lunenburg. Whoops. Thank you. So it's very hard for me to come in person, but I'm really grateful to be here. In the spirit of All Souls Day yesterday, I want to share sorrow for my cousin who passed last week. She was 41 years old. Her name was Marlene. She lived a very hard life. She died on the streets. No one was able to reach her for many years. She leaves behind 3 children who have been adopted. And she had a service that was held by the homeless shelter. I'd just like her to be present in people's hearts today. Thank you.
I didn't think I had anything to share today, but something that somebody said reminded me that last night we had a joy of attending the dinners for 8 and Molly and Lars's house. Wonderful dinner with Paul and Margaret and Andrea and Steph and Elizabeth and me. Then on the way back, Paul and Margaret dropped us off downtown so we could enjoy the downtown Halloween. I didn't see as many strange and weird costumes as I was hoping, but I saw some. We dropped in a bar to watch the crowd cheer for the Blue Jays. Then we got into a vehicle for 2 people, and the fellow who was driving it was very enthusiastic and charming. So he took us all around the city parade, gave us some crowns to wear, took some photos. I might post some of those. He did what? Oh, describe the vehicle. I'm not sure I can, but it was something that he pulled. There were seats for 2 people, and he was wearing a horse's head as a costume. And also he had wings behind him. So he called himself a Pegasus. And if anybody is interested in trying him, he gave me his business card. I forgot to bring it with me. But it was well worth the ride. So it was a lot of fun. We came home, watched the Blue Jays till the end. Unfortunately, they lost. So I guess that's a mixture of joys and concerns.
There's a parade today. Sometimes it's hard to get people to actually speak their joys and sorrows. So I'm joining the parade. Hi, I'm Andrea. I was a visitor here, visiting scholar at Dalhousie earlier in this year, and I'm just back visiting. My joy is to be able to return to this community, which really feels like my spiritual home. I do join on Zoom when I can, but it's lovely to be among you in person. But my specific joy today is that a week from yesterday, my son and his partner will be getting married in Toronto at Neighborhood Unitarian Church. He's my eldest, and he and his partner, Sydney, met during the foundation year program at King's. So the legacy of that beautiful program continues in my family, and the legacy of UU in our family continues. It's a great joy for their union to be celebrated in the Unitarian community in Toronto. So that's my great joy today.
Thank you. And one final stone for all that remains unspoken in our hearts. It's time for our offering. The work of this community is made possible by donations of time, talent, and money. Thank you for however you give, and we trust that you will give however much is right for you. Most donate by monthly e-transfer. You can donate directly to treasurer@uuch.ca. And on Sundays, we also pass the basket. And today, the basket funds will go to our operating fund.
No, that should say Saturday brunch.
Oh, a correction comes from the minister.
My apologies.
It's a Saturday brunch donation.
We're doing Saturday brunch donations the first Sunday of the month.
Oh, okay. Oh, Amy. Amy. Now let us sing together a song by Carolyn McDade about our complex, beautiful planet. It's not in our books. It's called Oh Beautiful Gaia. I think some of you probably know it. Yes, we have. The words will be on the screen, and Tristan will play it through once so you know what the tune is. If you could rise as you're able. And now it's our guest speaker's turn. Dr. Anya Waite, who shared with me that she last came to this building when she was 4 years old. She was part of the early childhood school. So welcome back, Anya. She's with the Ocean Frontier Institute at Dalhousie. She is the CEO of the Institute and the scientific director. So, Anya.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? Yeah. So it's a great, great pleasure to be here today. Quite an honor to be asked. I was absolutely. Is it? Is it all good?
Yes.
Okay. Truly all good? Okay, truly all good. So quite an honor to be asked to talk to you. It's always a joy for me to really be able to speak to Halifax communities and communities that care about climate and care about kind of the broader truth about how we live on the planet. And so what a joy to find this community that I really knew nothing about at all, and learning a bit about you all this morning and having a lovely time chatting. So very, very nice. As Margaret said, my first experience of going to a toilet that wasn't in my own house was in this building, and I had to go down this elbow hallway, which goes there down a long stretch and then down an even longer stretch to the end of the hall. And this was terrifying for a 4-year-old, the first time I'd ever been. But I learned this was a lovely place. I had a lovely experience, and other than that one terrifying moment, I had a lovely, lovely experience here. And also the elm trees out the back. I remember playing out the back and those big tall trees kind of meaning something to me. So how lovely to be back here. And my children, both my children went to the upstairs version of the early childhood school upstairs. So anyway, long history of this kind of space, which is lovely. So I'm going to give you a sort of a bit of a formal presentation, but it isn't really formal in the sense that I'd love you to interrupt me, to ask questions, or wave a hand and tell me you don't understand something I said, because I'm a scientist, and that means that I'm probably not the best communicator with non-scientists. So I always appreciate a probe to say, hey, you used a jargon word, or could you explain that because I didn't understand it? And if you didn't understand it, someone else across the room also did not. Or most of the room probably did not. So, all right, so maybe we just start with a presentation, which is a little bit about why we need to care about the ocean in the climate discussion. And I'm an ocean researcher, and today I'm just going to give you a bit of discussion around understanding that ocean-climate connection. And that's me, Dr. Anya Waite, CEO and Scientific Director of Ocean Frontier Institute, led by Dalhousie, but we work right across Atlantic Canada. We work with Université de Québec Rimouski, Université Laval, Memorial, University of Prince Edward Island, and even University of Victoria. So we work right across the country. So Ocean Frontier Institute is in that lovely blue building that you get at come along Oxford Street, and you're looking up to the left, and now it has this big sign saying BD Center for Marine Biodiversity, which is great news because it means that all of you and all of us can bring our friends and family in to have a look at some of the ocean research through this new center, which is a public-facing center. I'll talk about that in a minute. So what we do is we bring together hundreds of researchers across the country to tackle really big problems, so problems that are beyond the scope of a single person to really think about and research. And we also are tasked with talking to governments, talking to the public, and talking to industry. And none of those, each one of those is a challenging and demanding conversation, and none of them are easy. Just this morning I had a cross email from an industry colleague saying, oh, I don't think you talked about my company in the right way, you talked about another company in a better way. And those are fair comments, like we should always be very balanced, and so I think just brokering that conversation is a lot about what we do, and we don't always get any of this right? So it's kind of a space where researchers tend to stay in their labs, to stick by their computer and focus in on their research. We're tasked to stepping out into the community, and that is a really challenging task for me, but very joyful one, and also a very fulfilling one when it goes well. So we have 3 research areas. One is what we call achieving net zero, and that means getting the planet back to the point where we're not pumping more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than we're taking in. And that means talking about the carbon budget of the Earth and the carbon budget of the ocean. We also aim to protect biodiversity, and now that we're looking at potentially major wind farms off Nova Scotia, which is super exciting for our power grid, like the idea, we still burn coal, right, in Nova Scotia to get power. Can you imagine if we had offshore wind, which is driving massive amounts of carbon-free power to us and to the rest of the country, and then we could sell it to New England and make some money as well, right? So those are good things. And then sustaining bioresources is really about looking at the fisheries and aquaculture industries and making sure that what we're doing there is utilizing the best technologies to kind of stay sustainable and move forward instead of moving backwards. And I don't know how many of you might have seen David Attenborough's latest film called Ocean. It is a spectacular film, and one of the things he does is he highlights how bottom trawling is one of the most destructive things we do, which is so where you take a net, a fishing net, and you scrape it around along the bottom of the ocean, and he actually has video footage of all these frantic ocean animals trying to get out of the mouth of the net, which happens daily, right? So we want to get to sustainable bioresources, and that's some of the research we do. And I think I'm starting you off with a video.
The ocean breathes in and out, like the rhythm of the tides, connecting everything from the outer skies to the deepest seas. And at its heart is carbon. Carbon, the building block of life. It fuels nature's solar-powered machinery. From the redwoods to the savanna, to the eelgrass meadows and kelp forests in the sea, and phytoplankton that together, in such abundance, often paint the ocean green. The captured carbon then passes on through all living things, through krill and fish, birds and whales, butterflies and flowers, and you. Most living things hold on to carbon only briefly. Every time we exhale, we let carbon go. When life ends, carbon floats up into the sky or settles down buried in the soil. But in the ocean, things are different. It inhales more than it exhales and sends carbon into the abyss for hundreds and thousands of years. It is the ocean, more than anything else on Earth, that holds the balance. But we humans are releasing ever more carbon, extracting, drilling, and burning ancient carbon stores. And the carbon gathering around the planet has taken on a new identity. No longer just building and powering life, but now disrupting and threatening it too. As we reach for more, taking without thought, discarding without care, the ocean struggles to maintain the balance, to absorb all that carbon. How much is too much? How far is too far? The ocean breathes like the rhythm of the tides, connecting everything. All life depends on this. All life depends on the ocean.
That little video is to remind us that the ocean holds most of the carbon on Earth. And so if we're going to manage the carbon cycle, if we're going to manage climate change, we need to understand where that carbon is going. So if you try the next slide. So that's the ocean climate connection. It's the fact that the ocean actually absorbs about a third or quarter to a third of every annually of all the carbon that we emit. But it's also the biggest store on Earth. It holds 90% of the carbon on Earth. Next slide, please. So 30% of human-induced emissions have been stored by the ocean. But when we actually observe the world, most carbon observation is done on land and in the atmosphere because we are land animals. So we only really care about trees and air, right? So ocean carbon observation are a tiny, tiny fraction of what we actually study, but that's what we actually need to study to understand climate change. So alarmingly, what we're finding is that the ocean carbon flux, some of those processes that video showed you, may actually be changing quite quickly in ways that we don't understand and that are challenging to predict. Next slide, please. And that uncertainty actually increases the uncertainty in the future of climate change. And just as an example, when we were tracking Fiona, you can see how that was coming up from south of Halifax. And we also saw that horrible forest fire season where we really burnt up big chunks of Nova Scotia because of lack of rainfall. And all those things are driven by ocean processes. So the amount of moisture in the air and rainfall is driven largely by the ocean. The ocean is the largest repository of carbon and water on Earth. And so how much evaporates and where that air moves determines essentially where and how we get rainfall. So the ocean determines rainfall on land and determines when and where we get drought. Next one. So over the last few years at 3 of the Council of Parties at Dubai and Glasgow and Sharm el-Sheikh, I was pushing for the world to understand this connection between the ocean and climate and to give us more resources and push and understanding globally so we can actually measure the ocean enough to track climate change in the way we need to track it. And this is the message we took to COP. We tried to keep it really, really simple. We said, no, just one click. We said, your ocean is missing in your climate discourse. Just that very, very simple thing. And if you want to have understand the climate, you need to add the ocean back. And there you have it. So that was the message I took to internationally, of course with a little more negotiation behind the scenes and everything. But what I'm finding is that those simple messages are the ones that actually hit home. And that if we try and delve too deeply with policymakers and the UN, we lose their attention really, really quickly. Next slide, please. The Council of Parties, it's the big international climate meeting that you hear about on the news. So it happens every year. This year it's happening in South America, and it was happening in Sharm el-Sheikh and Dubai and Glasgow. And that's where all the UN agencies come together to talk about how we're going, how we're tracking with respect to climate change. So when we're tracking Fiona, one of the things that we found is that we don't have enough observation in the ocean, even just south of us in Nova Scotia, to really figure out exactly what's happening. So we're very good at the trajectories. We know pretty well where the hurricanes are going to go, but we're not very good at their intensity. And intensity actually matters a lot, right? Whether it's a Category 4 or Category 5, that's a huge difference for insurance, for, even if you're going to clean your gutters before it happens, right? Those are very important things. And one of the neat things, I think the next one is this little video. Oh no, this is just some of the Fiona damage that we all remember, right, from a couple of years ago. But now for the first time we have these seagoing drones, and they can actually make it through hurricanes for the first time. So the very first set of footage was, okay, before I get to that, these sail drones, so there's a drone there on the right-hand side. They move independently. They take solar panels and they skate around the surface of the ocean, and they measure temperature and pressure and important things about how the ocean is moving and responding. And you can see some trajectories there offshore. So during the time just before Fiona, there were at least 10 different pieces of equipment out there measuring the ocean, but they weren't pulled together. They were all kind of sending their signals to whichever researcher or whichever company was actually deploying them. So they weren't brought together. So we're trying to advocate, let's get all those data together so that we can have one big story and help ourselves understand what's going on. And just as an example, I think the video is next. Yeah, so this is the raw footage of the first ever sail drone that made it through the center of Hurricane Fiona. It was the first time ever that they actually made it through any hurricane.
And this is, I mean, it's a little bit terrifying, but it's also kind of spectacular when you think that this, and it's a bit hard to get the scale, but when you think that this drone is about 2.5 meters long, and look what it's getting through, right? So but that kind of thing is exciting because that drone can then measure what's going on inside that hurricane in a way that has never been measured before, and can allow us to understand how these systems move. And it's warm water. The warmer the water, the more moisture gets up into the hurricane. The more moisture gets up into the hurricane, the longer lived and the heavier it is. And if you have a very long-lived hurricane, it'll hit the land and it'll actually move inland for days before it dissipates. So Ontario might be getting hurricanes, for example, whereas, you know, and when I grew up here, we didn't have hurricane season. I don't know if any of you remember hurricane season. I didn't grow up with that. So we can see that things are changing. And I think one of the problems we have is what I mentioned to you, we have all these gizmos that's starting to be tested out in the ocean. But the people who need the information, the data users, are kind of saying, huh, I'm not seeing that information. So we need to, that's part of the job we're doing, is trying to bring that information together and provide it to the people who need it so that they can make the right decisions. Next slide. At Dalhousie, we've also just brought in 2 years ago, we started a plan to transform climate action, focusing on understanding the ocean. And there's a little video telling you about that next.
The Earth is teetering toward a climate crisis. And it is the ocean, more than anything, that keeps the balance. But emerging science shows the ocean's ability to absorb carbon and regulate temperatures is changing in ways we may not understand. It is a change that is not yet accounted for in climate targets, and a risk we can no longer afford to take. The time has come to transform climate action. The Transforming Climate Action Research Program will be one of the most intensive investigations ever undertaken into the ocean's role in climate change. Led by Dalhousie University's Ocean Frontier Institute in partnership with Université du Québec à Rimouski, Université Laval, and Memorial University of Newfoundland, and with historic support from the Government of Canada, Transforming Climate Action will take an ocean-first approach to the fight against global warming. This research program will reduce uncertainty by increasing our understanding of the changing ocean's role in climate change. Mitigate climate change by partnering with industry to develop safe, ocean-based carbon removal technologies and enterprises, creating new jobs and economic opportunities. And develop solutions to help coastal communities thrive as the climate continues to change. Based on the latest science, developed through community collaboration and informed by indigenous ways of knowing, Transforming Climate Action will give us the knowledge, innovations, and solutions we need to secure a positive climate future. Join our growing international collaboration at transformclimateaction.ca.
Okay, so you can see that's me trying to take that carbon problem, that climate problem in the ocean, and turning it into something actionable that we can actually do something concrete about. So we work across 4 universities in Eastern Canada, and we work in some really interesting areas for the ocean climate. So you can see the Labrador Sea up there, just east and west of Greenland. That's a place where the ocean absorbs huge amounts of carbon, and it does it in this way. So the Gulf Stream and other things move the ocean north, and then east and west of Greenland it cools, and the surface, which is very rich in carbon dioxide because it's sucked it up from the atmosphere, starts to cool and sink, and it sinks all the way down to the bottom of the Atlantic, so 2,000 meters or more, 3 kilometers down, and it takes that carbon from the atmosphere right into the deep sea, and that's one of the biggest sinks in the whole ocean. So the sinking, what they call them chimneys. Basically cool balls of water that cool and sink as they become denser and sink right down to the Atlantic, and then they crawl around on the sea floor for 1,000 years. That is one, and it's true, and that's one of the biggest impacts that the ocean has on climate. But of course, the Arctic is now melting, and the Gulf Stream is slowing. So you have a melt. If you think of the Arctic melting, it's a bit like a Zamboni of sort of fresh water going over the North Atlantic, potentially shutting down those chimneys or changing how they operate. And then with the Gulf Stream slowing, you also potentially have changes. And so we really, really need to understand what's happening in the Labrador Sea and whether or not that circulation is going to continue, because that's one of the biggest global climate sinks. There's also chimneys like that in some parts of the Southern Ocean. You might have actually seen it in the New York Times and the Guardian. They both had articles about this over the last year. It's called the AMOC, or the Ameridional Overturning Circulation. Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC. And it happens on either side of Greenland. So that's one of the areas. The other areas, of course, is around the Gulf of St. Lawrence, where we know that the water's becoming less oxygenated. So there's little oxygen holes or low oxygen zones in the center of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. That also changes the carbon budget of the ocean, because oxygen and carbon are really closely related to each other. And then, of course, we have all those issues around how is the oceanography around Nova Scotia, Newfoundland changing, and as it does so, are we getting changes in our fisheries, in our lobster fishing, and things like that? So those are really big issues that we need to deal with around Atlantic Canada. And what we're trying to do is to get some sort of a global understanding of that carbon absorption and how it's changing, so that's a big deal. But also to kind of come more locally and talk to our Indigenous colleagues. We're working with colleagues from Mi'kma'ki, but also up in Nunatsiavut, so on the northern Labrador coast there, and also in Quebec, so many different communities, and with fishing communities and others. So we're really interested in trying to help small communities deal with climate change, and that's a big ask. So these are our three themes: reducing the uncertainty, just to understand those chimneys, etc., mitigating climate change, so to build an industry that's climate friendly, getting to net zero, and then adapting equitably, which means collaborating with communities and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing. Because if we're going to have climate policies, we want them to be just and equitable. And I loved some of the wording that I think it was you heard this morning about who is holding the money, who is wealthy, who is happy, who is strong in our communities. And those are all important issues as we try to build out healthy and strong communities under climate change, because any policy you enact to save us from climate change may have winners and losers on the ground, and we want to make sure that anything we do has that justice and equity to it. And that's hard, right? That's work to do, to understand how to create the right kinds of policies. Okay, I'm going to skip over North Atlantic Carbon Observatory. The idea here is simply that we observe the Atlantic better than we have before, so I'm going to skip over that because I feel like I'm running over time. We brought in Mark Carney way back in 2021, before he was even a twinkle in the Liberals' eye, and he came as the keynote speaker to one of our workshops, so we're still in communication with him. He is, and just to reassure you, because I had to reassure myself, he actually is a climate activist. He's not sounding like it right now. He's sounding like a kind of an economic development guy. But if you read his book, Values, you realize that he does have a strong understanding of climate change. And I ran into him at a reception in Ottawa, and I said to him, I got stuck on chapter 5 because I found it a little bit thick, heavy going. And he said, well, just read the bit about climate change and skip to chapter 16. I think it's reassuring to me right now that we have a government that, even though it's talking economics, it has a kicker of caring about the climate, and that matters to me because of especially part of what we're seeing south of the border. We don't want to be, drifting into that kind of space. Next slide. Right. Right, absolutely. And so my sense is, is that maybe things have to be timely. And we've heard a lot of great things about climate action over the last 5 years, and then suddenly it's all about economic developments. You know, let's do some fracking, let's look for uranium, and I think that it's important to a little bit let that wind blow by, and then kind of double down into, yeah, but if we're going to have any economic strength, we need to tackle climate change. And there's a time for that message, and you'd so never abandon it, but also right now I'm just holding back a little bit and saying, let's push climate-friendly industries, right? It sounds pretty pragmatic, which I never thought I would be, but right now I feel like Kearney is pushing this economic message, but I know personally from talking to him that he cares about climate change, so I am putting my economic message first, making sure that the climate change comes behind. Okay. The other thing is that we do at Ocean Frontier Institute is supporting ocean literacy, and we work with, if you go to the next slide, we work with the Ocean School, and also the new Beatty Center has just opened last week. I don't know if you saw that on the news. Basically, there's a beautiful blue whale skeleton and all sorts of nice exhibits to talk to you about ocean research. And it's the first time, really, that ocean research at Dalhousie has kind of been open to the public for discussion. So I really welcome that. And here's a few hashtags and whatever. Love to hear from you. Always very, very much enjoy getting queries from the public and from groups like yourself who really care about the future of the ocean and the future of climate. And so maybe we can just stop the presentation and then go to questions, because I'm sure that many of you have things I can learn from and questions for me. Oh, okay, sure.
Hello. Hi, Dr. Beatty. I have a question for you. Maybe you might be able to help me with some of this, but as somebody that's going into my student teaching right now, talking about climate change, talking about it in the context of life sciences, like I'm looking to be a biology teacher, but in talking about climate science, it's kind of difficult to kind of like, what am I trying to say here? Like avoid the trap of like only talking about like the engineering kind of perspective on climate change, like we can engineer our way out of this. Do you have like any suggestions for like resources that are more biology based when it comes to discussing issues of how we sequester carbon as opposed to these like pie in the sky kind of, engineering queries?
Yeah, I mean, Ocean School has quite a few nice resources for, first of all, thank you for your question. And second of all, I'll say teaching has never been more important. So the work that you do or plan to do is kind of fundamental for the future. If we don't have thoughtful teachers like yourself who are going out there and saying, how do I bring the message to my students, we don't have a future, right? And so just to remind yourself how important the work is that you're doing. I'd say Ocean School is probably a good place to look for some of those resources, because they have sort of they have virtual reality headsets, and they have some beautiful movies and whatever. They have a website which I don't think is that easy to navigate, but you can always reach out to me if you feel like you need a bit of help. It's all beautiful content from the National Film Board, so it's really well done. And also happy to send any. There's also some nice resources about what climate change means for Atlantic Canada. And we're happy to, and some fact sheets and stuff like that we'd be happy to share. And I also think one of the most important messages for youth is the message of hope. Because it's very easy to look around and see, hurricanes and forest fires and collapse of ecosystems and whatever, and kind of lose the sense that there is a positive trajectory for the world. And I think we really want to make sure that that's the case. And so that's why I come back over time to the term climate action, to say to kids, well, what can you do? What difference can you make? And it's not just the small action of lowering your own carbon footprint, turning down the heat, making a solar panel, using a solar panel instead of oil or coal. It's also what you say, and I think sometimes we underestimate this. Getting children to speak to themselves, their peers, their parents, and others about climate change is really, really important. I never forget, I lived in Australia for many years, and my daughter came home, she was, I think, 7. For the first time, she'd heard about residential schools in Australia. And she came home in rivers of tears and said to me, "Mummy, they took children away from their mothers." And she was just weeping, and I don't think I understood what the residential schools meant until my 7-year-old came to me in tears. And so there's no education system like reaching young people who get passionate about the truth and are willing to speak it at home. So again, back to the importance of teaching in terms of delivering really the future for us all. I think I got off track there answering your question, but that to me is very, very important. Yeah.
Not at all. I appreciate the answer. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you. Wonderful presentation, Anya. I've been reading quite a bit. I'm not a scientist, but I've been reading quite a bit about some of the solutions. And one that I've recently read that I thought was quite interesting was phytoplankton absorbs a huge amount of carbon. And they found that if what they call fertilization of the ocean with iron, and it increases the amount of phytoplankton, and so consequently more absorption. But my question is, if we were to do things like fertilize the ocean with iron, they're also talking about fertilizing the ocean with basically baking soda for the acidification of the ocean. As someone who's untrained, they sound like, wow, this is great solutions. But I'm sure you know some of the negative side effects.
That's absolutely fabulous question. And how much do you know? Like, this just, wow. This is right at the cutting edge of what I'm thinking and talking about at the Institute, because we are doing a lot of research around how do these types of perturbations in the ocean, how do they change the ocean? And is the positive impact they have, and they all do a good job in pulling carbon into the ocean. And do they have any negative impacts? Do they have, are they potentially dangerous for the ocean? And I guess the first thing I would say is the the UN system has signaled very clearly that we have to start pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. We can't just lower our emissions, but lowering our emissions is the first thing we have to do. But then on top of that, we have to be trying and have to be trying. In other words, the wording is in the UN resolutions. We have to be trying some of these, testing them out, in order to lower the chance of getting these extreme heat values on Earth. So in my view, if you look at the bottom trawling, for example, if you look at how we've already perturbed the climate of the Earth, we've already done these horrible things to the Earth, right? And the perturbations, in my view, and this is just maybe my personal view, I think we have to be testing them. Because let's take the example of adding the antacid to the ocean, right? The ocean is also already acidified a lot. So there's been what they call ocean acidification because of industrial emissions and carbon in the atmosphere going into the ocean and all those things. So in fact, adding antacid to the ocean potentially is helping the ocean just neutralize it back to where it was. So even it's not quite that simple, but that is a perturbation that I am really not very worried about in comparison to the way I'm worried about climate change. So in my view, while we always have to test these things, they need to be done in collaboration with scientists, they need to be done carefully and in a controlled way. If we don't test them, then we're in trouble. So I think it's a good idea to test them, and they are being tested, as you know, in Bedford Basin. We had some of the first testing of this antacid thing happening on Tufts Cove, and so we're kind of a hotbed for but it has to be done with research, would be my sense, because if you don't have, you need an honest broker in there, you need a neutral body studying it and making sure that even if there are some negative impacts, that those are known and completely openly shared. And then we can decide, is climate change more important, or is this perturbation that has a negative potentially impact more important? And then we make that choice together. It's not somebody doing it behind the scenes for us. So it's an open and transparent process. I'm probably over time, am I?
I hate to say this, but we do have to find out. But will you be able to stay afterwards for?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, great. So you will probably be inundated as soon as, as we finish off here.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you, and happy to take questions.
Now let's just sing our congregational favorite, Blue Boat Home. Number 1064 in the teal hymnal, but the words will be up on the screen. Of Sylvia Alice Earle, another female marine biologist, oceanographer, and an explorer. The most valuable thing we extract from the ocean is our existence. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And that's the end of our service. Coffee in the other room. And the meeting will start